It's Astrology Roast. I think it needs to sound like a shitty intro, like a funny shitty intro.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Astrology Roast. My name is Karen.
My name is Itai, and in true Mercury Retrograde fashion, I've lost my voice.
I think you've gained a more sensual voice, actually. It's very throaty and raspy.
Yeah, do you think my voice is now more feminine or more masculine?
Hard mask.
It's hard.
Hard mask, but...
Mask for mask.
Yeah,
it's funny because we are in Pisces season and Mercury is retrograding and my Mercury is in Pisces. So literally my voice has been taken away from me, but my dreams and my visions of spirits around me is been very vivid. So I think, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, well, my Mercury, I think, is in Gemini. So we've spoken about this before, how I think that words, like silence is the equivalent of death.
Yeah.
So I really feel for you at the moment because you've been quite sick. You've lost your voice. Of course, your dream capacities are through the roof and you are traveling into space every night, so it seems. Yeah. But yeah, I'm feeling for you. Yeah,
not only I dream about everyone, I had a few people coming to me at work and saying, "Oh, you were in my dream last night serenading me." And I'm like, how was I serenading you?
I don't have a voice. Yeah.
I was literally talking to my grandma for 2 hours last night. So I don't know how I had the time to do both. But you know what? It's Pisces. Who says you can't visit 5 different entities in one night?
Wow.
50 different entities. But yeah, Mercury retrograde came in with a bang.
With a boom.
With a boom, with a stinky boom. So something either died or congested in our trains, in our apartment. And we had to, my favorite thing in the world is bleach. I know it's not environmental and unhealthy to inhale, but I grew up in a culture where bleach is your friend. And I called the landlord, and I don't know what her stars, and she must be a Leo or a Libra or something like schmoozy, like a schmoozy sign, because every time I call her, she's like, "Oh, honey." She always calls me honey, like she never met me, but I was like, you have to put bicarb soda and bleach, and I bought a few liters of bleach and a few kilos of bicarb soda, and just shoved it in. And
it was disgusting though, just to give listeners a sense of it. And I'm sorry if you're, out for brunch whilst listening to this or living your best life, but all of a sudden there was a putrid smell of off milk, and no one in this house even consumes milk because you're vegan, and I just try every trend in the book. So this week I'm lactose intolerant, next week I'm pro meat, paleo, ketogenic, whatever it is. But I've been off the milk for a while. But yeah, it smelt like off milk. But 5 million babies had come into the house and vomited on the floor and then ran out in the nighttime. Wow. And it was in the walls, and the smell of the milk was just, you couldn't locate it. It was showing up in the toilet, and then it was in the living room, and then it was in the kitchen. And you were like, okay, it's probably a ghost. And I was like, reasonable. Yeah. Reasonable. There's been a few.
It's known that when ghosts when it's evil spirits, they have a stench, reeking of stench.
Oh, it's disgusting. But I did look online, and nothing online suggested that it was a ghost. You did say there's probably rats in the walls or something else. But yeah, it's all been sorted. But it was very Mercury. You were sick. I've been sick. And it's just been no one can be fucked dealing with it. Although as soon as you set your mind to the task of resolving this issue, you went full Aries, insane vibe. And as you said, bought kilos of bicarb and bleach and just went full blitzing of the house.
Well, what can I say? I am an Aries, even though I realize that I'm a Capricorn stellium. So I just had another look at my chart, and I have 4 planets or 5 planets in Capricorn. And we talked about it on the podcast. It means you're a stellium, which means
Like you're a stallion, like a horse.
Yeah.
Like you're the real
like a goat.
majestic, like a goat. Yeah, the majestic figure of the zodiac, where you are just so in that star sign that it's just hard to be around you. So you are super Capricorn, even though you're an Aries.
I'm a platinum Gay and a platinum Capricorn. So I think a lot of the traits that I always say, oh, it's an Aries trait, it's a Virgo trait, sometimes they come from a Capricorn. Something else that happened in a Mercury retrograde vibe that has to do with my Capricorn mom was that last night I spoke to my mom on the phone for 50 hours. Sorry. Okay, 50 minutes. That was a Freudian slip. It felt like 50 hours. It was 50
and not enough hours, though. She would say not enough.
Not enough hours. Not at all. But anyway, in true Mercury retrograde fashion, I was talking to her on my phone while on my iPad I was stalking my dad's new wife. Wow. And I felt like I'm really embracing that Mercury retrograde / 2019 / Age of Aquarius energy, because it's all about technology and this weird combination of feelings. Like, I don't think humans are meant to speak to their own mother on the phone while stalking their new stepmother on another device. It felt very weird. It felt very like off, like that smell that was in our house. But something very Capricorn about that conversation was when my mom was talking about, some argument she had with someone, and she said, I just hoped people can change. And I was like, Mom, why did you hope that? When did you ever change? And yeah, that was the tone. I was very angry because she keeps saying that. And then I was like, when did you ever change? And she goes, of course I never changed. But still, it's like, what could be more Capricorn, expecting everyone around you to change according to your own morals, but celebrating, admitting, and saying, I will never change, and not being even apologetic, like being totally owning it. Anyway, yeah. And my dad's new wife is also a Capricorn.
Oh my gosh.
Which is also a powerhouse. And now I get this excited. I'm so excited because I'm going to meet her soon, and I'm going to get to be the Aries, angry, angsty teenager again. And we all know how Aries people love to be an angry teenager and have a cause and have something to shout about. And
do you think, will you ever say to her, whilst having your hands folded in front of you, will you scream and say, you're not my real mum, and then slam the door and run out?
100%.
To which she would probably reply yeah, I'm totally not.
I have my own kids. I have my own 10 kids.
I have 13 children of my own.
I think I'll definitely will aspire to that and more experience. But she's very, from the stalking that I did, she's very traditional.
Which you love.
Yeah, traditional in a way that you could probably associate with homophobia or racism. So I'm really excited to meet her and, I don't know, mention a few of the dicks that I've seen or touched, or, my ex-boyfriend, or just to stir the shit out of the pot that is my life and my family.
What if she just embraces you and accepts you for all that you are? You'd be so disappointed.
I really hope she doesn't. I really hope it will be a lot easier for me to just
People
scream.
People can change. Not like what your mum thinks,
I know. I don't know. I don't believe people can change. But also my dad told me that the house that they have now has a few rooms. So I feel like there's at least one room I can run into and slam the door and say don't come into my room. This is my private room. You all hate me. I hate you. Yeah, that's fun.
Something to look forward to when you go back to Israel. I also want to ask, so as I said, you've been pretty sick. And the other day I was around and you were around and you were very sick, off work. And I was like, look, I'm coming. I was out and about and I was like, I'm coming to collect you. You need to leave the house. You'd been in the house for many hours on end. And I drove up in front of the apartment block to collect you, and you were wearing, it was like George Michael had descended into St Kilda East. You had a scarf wrapped around you in this glamorous fashion. You were wearing sunglasses. I don't think it was even a hot day.
It wasn't even my sunglasses.
You had a beanie on. You had like a industrial military
oversized
coat. I was like, and then you were like, stop, don't look at me, I'm hideous. And like, it was this whole like celebrity, like you really wore being sick quite well. And I was very impressed, I must say.
What do they say? Don't dress up for the job you have, dress up for the job you want. Exactly.
Which is, as a sick, sympathy receiving person, you really wore it well.
Well, you know what? I've been trying to understand my Venus in Taurus placement in the last few weeks. And now that you're saying that, I think it's a part of that. It's a part of like, everything has a look.
Yeah.
Like, my well-being. I've spoken about my well-being tracksuit. When I have a day of well-being, I need to wear the specific tracksuit. And that my sickness, celebrity sickness, oversized coat and a scarf. If you're now listening and trying to get a visual, Google Lenny Kravitz huge scarf. That was the look I was going for. You should really check that picture out.
For me, it was, you really were channeling George Michael being discovered whilst on the beat. Like,
yeah, that's
being like, oh, sorry guys, it's me.
Just
having fun. Like,
I'll take that.
Yeah, may he rest in peace. What an incredible celebrity.
I also
gifted man.
I know. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
I also loved your Aries ascendant vibe of like, get in, loser. We're going shopping.
Yeah. Come on, loser, we're going.
And
I
just
felt
like,
good.
I was like, in my vision, your car was like rushing into the street, leaving a trail of smoke. Like,
yeah, like a clueless car, or like Mean Girls car, like driving up in my little,
pink Beetle car. So thank you for that. That was a great outing of the day.
Look, you're on the mend, and it has been, as we mentioned, Mercury retrograde, but there's been a couple of other huge planetary movements that have been going on. So if in the earlier part of this week, around the 5th, 6th, 7th of March, wherever you are in this planet that we inhabit, you've been feeling some crazy feelings or shifts in energy, you're not alone. It's been a huge time. So Mercury retrograde, we've spoken about that, happens a couple of times a year, throws a whole lot of things into the air. You start walking into things, losing your keys, your computer breaks down, everything seems to fuck up and needs a redo. But this particular Mercury retrograde has been happening right at the very end of Pisces. So that feeling of that psychic energy, but also that frustration of needing to get things out and sort things out just around that time. You might have been feeling the need to clear the air or to connect deeply to yourself, or that which is superficial just doesn't cut it. That's maybe one explanation for that. But on the very, very same day, give or take a couple of hours either side, we also had the new moon in Pisces. So again, some more Pisces psychic, intuitive energy, and a huge planetary shift of Uranus moving into Taurus. Now, to give you a bit of context, Uranus only shifts every 7 years into a new sign. So it actually will only make it back to its original sign once every 84 years. Wow. So it's a big shift. We've just had Uranus move out of Aries. So Itai, your sign, all about, the individual. And Uranus, for those who don't remember, is the planet of revolution and change and, sharp moments of insight and a whole lot of shit happening in a really sudden moment. It doesn't like to be boxed in. It doesn't like to be fixed.
Aquarius.
It's Aquarius, exactly. The ruling planet of Aquarius likes to mess shit up and have a lot of fun in that sense. It can be great. It can be terrible. But every 7 years it shifts. And now we're in Taurus, and Taurus is the ruling planet of Venus. And it's actually one of the most fixed earth signs that we know. It loves tradition. It loves the earth and possessions and groundedness. And it also loves sensual pleasures. And it rules the throat. So, Itai, you've lost your voice, but actually, Taurus is actually known for the throat and expression and the arts and music as well. So, we're going to see some absolutely huge shifts. So, I've got a lot to say about this topic. Itai, do you have anything to say? Have you felt these shifts in energy? Because I got a lot to say.
I think, first of all, I would like to acknowledge Taurus as a sign and also as an important sign. I don't know if you remember, but in Astrology Rose 2018 Wrapped, I said I want to get more Taurus people in my life. And there's someone that started to work with us in the office that is a Taurus, and he's a great guy, and it's really been a pleasure. And Taurus people, I learned, they really make you feel loved, and they're very warm. And as you said, the tradition, it's the bull. The symbol of Taurus is the bull that sits and doesn't want to move. And you can tease them and you can try to make them move, but they're not prone to fall into your trap. But as the bull, once you manage to push them over the edge, they're gonna fucking run into you and smash you to pieces. And that is more of a kind of like an understanding about Taurus people. They really don't like to fight, but if you get them to fight, they'll finish you. Unlike the Aries that like waiting for you to say something that they can like start a fight about.
Absolutely.
So good on you, Taurus. And as I said, I have Taurus in Venus, and I'm trying to understand what it means.
I've got my Taurus is with Jupiter, and I've also really struggled with understanding what that means because they're not very comfortable placements. And same with Uranus now, the planet Uranus moving into Taurus. It's actually a very uncomfortable placement for Uranus because Taurus is fixed and grounded and hates change, but also loves pleasure. We always forget to talk about the Taurians loving the sensual. They love, clothes, and they're ruled by Venus, like the most sensual, beautiful, earthly, feminine planet, that pleasure capital. We forget about that. And Uranus is all about change. Taurus hates change. But here we are for 7 long, grueling years until we get to Gemini. So hopefully we'll still be recording this in 2025 or whenever that is.
We sure will. So you also mentioned, before that, I wanted to tell a story that I remembered that represents, I think, my Venus in Taurus. So for people that are going on the same journey, trying to understand what their Venus in Taurus is, I think there's a lot to be said about how Venus rules love and pleasure. And when you have a sign in Venus, it maybe will explain how you like to be loved and what gives you pleasure and what makes you feel loved. So it doesn't have to be from someone else. And I think, as I said, clothes, for example, or a certain outfit or a certain setting. And when I was young, I was really obsessed with being tan. It was a very short period of time because up until, I think, the age of 20-something, I didn't even expose my body to the sun because I was ashamed. Because I was ashamed of my body and ashamed to take my shirt off and any other clothing part for that matter. But then...
It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, but it's okay, and it's other people's experience too. And we are in a time where everything's a bit more vulnerable, so I think it's okay to open up and share this with other people. So my skin is very protected. It wasn't exposed to UV until around 20-something years of age. But when I was 21, I wanted to be tan, so... I was alone in the apartment. I was in an apartment with 3 other of my friends. I was alone in the apartment, so I was like, oh, great, I can take my shirt off like no one's here. And I went to the balcony and I wanted to get a quick tan. It was a really hot, sunny day. And I didn't have any tanning oil. Or I wasn't even looking for... sunscreen. I was looking for
oils.
A sun enhancer. But what I did have was a bottle of canola oil.
I think it works, no?
Oh, it sure as hell works.
Wow.
I dipped my body in canola oil. It wasn't even like, a light smear. It was, I could see the layer of oil I had on my body. And I just fell asleep on the balcony for 3 hours. In the heat of the summer.
You must have stunk.
I don't think I was even able to smell at the end of that 3 hours, because it was literally like not a metaphor. I was frying. I was deep frying in the sun. The sun, like, you know it. You put canola oil in a pan.
Yeah.
You break an egg. You got an omelet, you know? I was that omelet. And by the end of that day, every inch of my body was peeling off. Like, my entire body was fried. My wasn't my boyfriend at the time, but my roommate, my Aquarius first boyfriend to be. But he has a Pisces moon, so he was very, very nurturing. He was literally picking my skin off my back and my body and putting cream. Yeah, like I couldn't move. It was like an injury, like a legit injury.
Wait, so this is related to your Venus in
Taurus?
How?
Because I think it related to my Venus in Taurus, because I believed that type of skin color will make me feel happy and loved. It might be a far stretch. Maybe it was my Aries impatience. I don't know. But I think it really falls with my chart, this behavior.
Yeah.
And now I can tell people, don't be afraid to take your shirt off.
Yeah.
And don't use canola oil when you want to get a tan.
Words to live by for those out there that are practicing those practices.
Definitely.
Well, I'm glad you've come to terms with, your Taurus and Venus. It's actually a beautiful placement to be in. As I said, as an age for the next 7 years, we are not in a comfortable placement with Taurus and Uranus, but let's work with this energy. Let's deal with this revolutionary, crazy, mess shit up energy in a positive way. Now, to give some context, 84 years ago when Uranus was in Taurus, a little while back, that was when Hitler came to power. God. We really need to check that we're using this energy in a positive way. He was a Taurus, so I mean, we're not down with what he did, and that's really awful.
And we don't accuse all Taurians.
No, I'm not accusing all Taurians of that, but I'm just wanting to give some Taurus that for every coin, there is two sides to the coin. Now, an intersectional lens might say there are multiple sides to a coin, and it's circular and complex and multifaceted, and I would agree with that. But anywho, so this has all been happening at the same time in Pisces, and if you felt like, oh my God, something is just happening, something is shifting, but I haven't been able to give voice to it, how is this going to manifest? Well, you're not wrong. Something has been changing for all of us. And with the Taurian energy, so as we've said, it rules a couple of different aspects within the zodiac. So Taurus kind of represents money, possessions, also the earth upon which we stand, so soil, how we sustain ourselves and nourish ourselves, so what you eat, and food being a medicine. And also pleasure and how things look and what gives us pleasure. So there are going to be some huge seismic shifts in this realm, and I've already started to see quite a lot of change bubbling over. And as everyone who has not been living under a rock would be aware, it has been International Women's Day, and everyone's been going ape about it and just posting everything and monetizing it, but also celebrating it and having events. It's been a huge day on the radar. So I've really felt that coinciding with this move of Uranus into Taurus is no coincidence. We're going to see a lot of stuff around pleasure, who has the right to pleasure. And on the flip side, as you said, like that angry bull that Taurians can be, we're going to talk and be experiencing flip side of pleasure and anger. So who has the right to feel angry? So we've moved out of this Aries Uranus revolutionary time, which was, so many shifts in power and the individual. So everyone's saying me, 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 me. And now we're looking at, okay, what the fuck? Like, we need to band together and things are going to shift. I've been reading a book which has made me very angry, but has been a positive anger. It's called Rage Becomes Her, and it's by an author called Soraya Chemaly. And it's all about women's rage and anger and how we explore and accept and deny that in society. Now, I was sitting in De Graves Street in Melbourne CBD, which is, if you haven't been there, it's like a little Paris or Berlin. Coffee shops, a little library there, a Brunetti's for those who like a bit more of an Italian feel when they get their coffee. There's also, Vietnamese food. It's got everything.
It's very Instagram friendly.
Very Instagram friendly. I was having a coffee at the bagel place, and I see this woman walking down De Grey Street, one of Melbourne's famous laneways, being followed by camera women. Actually, they were all women. And I was like, hang on a second, what? Wait, is it? It's the author. And I was reading Rage Becomes Her, all about women's fury and anger and rage. And she just strutted right past me. She's an American activist, writer. And I was like, what are you doing in Melbourne? I mean, I know it is a little Berlin, but it's pretty fucking far. We're like 28 hours from anywhere that matters. And she was just there and I bolted. I just like literally went bing, first I actually checked my phone to make sure that I wasn't getting my wires crossed. I'm like, that's going to be pretty embarrassing if I go up to this woman and say, you must be this woman. Yeah, so it was her. I actually went up there, I held the book to her face and I was like, is this you? Is this yours? And she was like, oh my God, yes, yeah, it is. And then they filmed me getting her signature, fame, my deepest need to be seen and represented, even if just as a fangirl. She kept looking at me and saying, don't read it before bed. Just don't read it before bed. Obviously, I've been reading it before bed, but I don't sleep very much, so it doesn't really make a difference. And it's a good space for me to feel angry. But all to say that anger, women's rage, International Women's Day, it has been a major theme in the last couple of days, in the last few years, and I feel like it's going to make even more headlines. People have had enough. People have always had enough, but we're hearing people talk about how we experience anger, who has the right to experience anger and who doesn't. We were watching the other day, or you were watching and I was just sitting around kind of trying to edge in. You were watching Martha Bakes, which is Martha Stewart, who is from, different generation, but she is probably one of the most quietly angry, disdainful people on Netflix, I would say. And maybe this is just a judgment.
Wouldn't want to cross that woman.
She
wouldn't want to cross her. She's a Leo. Just for context, Martha Bakes is a show that is produced for Netflix, and it's Martha Stewart baking things. Every show is based around an ingredient or flavor. So there's one episode about chocolate, one episode about coconut, one episode about pastry, and it's very, very low budget. Sometimes she puts the mixer on and they couldn't even buy the microphone that will silence the mixer. So for 1 minute you will explain, but all you can hear is the mixer. And she'll just tell you the most crucial part of the recipe, but she'll just put the mixer on so you'll never know. And it's very sad actually to watch a Leo. A Leo goes from fame to not as she used to be, I think, a lot more powerful than...
Yeah, she was one of the original domestic, so to speak, goddesses of cooking. And I don't know why it's so unsettling to watch that show. She speaks only in one monotone level of speaking, and it's continual, and there's something's going on there where she has lost her zest for life, and you feel like she is about to crack slowly and quietly, take each egg and crack it on the floor while smiling. She talks about dinner parties and how yummy things will be when you have your friends around for a dinner party. But, I mean, she's got another show with Snoop Dogg where it's all about, smoking weed and making crazy stuff. And she feels a little bit more in her element when she's recording or filming, rather, with Snoop Dogg. But this show, it is just unsettling. It's she just hates every second of it. Someone is forcing her to do it. She's disdainful of the audience. She'd never go to a dinner party with anyone watching Martha Bakes. No. Way beneath her.
Well, I watched it to calm down. This is my anti-anxiety show. And she also went to jail, yeah?
I think she had some tax fraud or tax evasion things. So she's
I've
had her life, yeah.
I've seen an interview with Kim Kardashian, and she's, we know, a Libra. I always say the most Libra to ever lived. And she has a lot of passion to, justice and injustice, and we all know she got a woman out of jail. She went to speak to Trump, and she got a woman out of jail. And she was, I think, in Jimmy Fallon's or something, and she was talking about giving work to ex-felons, and she was like, people have been served their time. I'm very passionate about it, and I want to hire in my company people that have been to jail, and now they're out. And the audience wasn't, when people are like, yeah, I'm having a baby, and the whole crowd is like, woo! Yeah. And the president's like, yeah, my new album comes next week, and everyone's like, woo! So, like, she was talking about it, and there was silence. Like, the audience didn't even know how they feel about it. Personally, I think it's amazing. So maybe we can, put Martha in contact with Kim. I don't know, like maybe a better show than Martha Beck. I personally love Martha Beck, and I hope she continues. But
it's hypnotic. It's absolutely hypnotic. But I mean, what is the connection of this to International Women's Day? You might be asking, and I've definitely gone on a tangent. But I think that there is, because Martha comes from a time when, I guess, to be a woman on TV expressing rage or anger or not always smiling and saying everything's great and I'm so grateful to just be here on the stage. Well, things are shifting, but I mean, maybe they're not shifting that much. And I think another huge thing that's been happening is there's been a lot of publicity around R. Kelly's interview with Gayle King. So Gayle King, I mean, look, we do know her as Oprah's best friend, because, like, what is more fun than friendship? And their friendship being the quintessential friendship of our generation. But she actually is also a woman in her own right. Yeah. She is a journalist, she's an interviewer, and she's obviously Oprah's best friend. She is a Capricorn, so she's super hardworking. Powerhouse. And she has done an interview with R. Kelly to discuss all of the allegations against him of just being a disgusting, awful person that he probably is. And I haven't actually watched the interview, so I won't go too much into it, but I've seen a lot of pictures popping up of Gayle just sitting down and interviewing him, asking him all these hard-hitting questions, and R. Kelly screaming and pontificating and raising his hands up and standing up and being really threatening and aggressive and dominant and just a total dick. And she's sitting there and just being, all these words that we use to describe this picture of her sitting whilst he stands over her and threatens her is graceful and what a queen, and she's really showing him, and she, the real quintessential amazing interviewer and how great. And look, I totally was like, yeah, go Gayle, like this is amazing. But it really made me think, about a couple of other comments from other people saying, why are we saying that, the only acceptable and respectable way for her to respond to that is in this quietly dignified, silent, accepting and stable way. Like, what about if she felt really scared and fearful and she's just sitting there and having to contain her fear? Or if she feels really angry and pissed off that he's taking up all of this aggressive space, and, we are kind of putting on a pedestal a certain way of experiencing fear or anger or any of these feelings. And it's like, as a woman, and also, other minorities or oppressed groups, we have this certain palette of colours that, of emotions that we're allowed to paint with. Yeah. And all the other colours, we can't inhabit them. But, Donald Trump can scream and moan, and R. Kelly can scream and point his finger at the camera. But in this context, it's only, she's respected for being amazingly, whatever she needed to be in that moment. But it's a really interesting conversation. And I think, we're going to be having these conversations about who has the right to feel good and to take up space and to have pleasure, and who has got the right to be angry.
Yeah, and to assert your boundaries or your behavior. Yeah, and we also spoke about how you, as you just said, how you're expected to express anger. And like, even in other words, like, what are you allowed to say or to behave? And, like, for example, in protests or in Q&A or in a TV show, when a woman or any, as you said, any minority will speak up, they will automatically be labeled as hysterical or aggressive. And then there will always be the people that would say, they really harm the process because they alienate people. And I would love to listen to someone about minorities' rights, but it needs to be in a nice manner. It needs to be, and like, no one accepts that this woman might be angry every day because while you're living your life, every day there are people that's their experience. Their experience of every day is to be silenced, shut down, offended, oppressed in all these ways. And then when they get these 40 minutes of light time on the stage, they lose their shit. Fair enough, because they've been waiting for the time to speak up, but you want them to be tamed and you want them to do it in a way that is nice for you.
Absolutely. There's a beautiful, the beginning aspects of this book that I have read maybe 20 pages of, but feel like I now have the right to speak as if I'm a scholar in feminism, which I know very little about. But the beginning of the book, this author, Soraya, speaks about her mother, who was a very cheerful, positive woman in her life and in her family's life. And one day as a kid, she saw her taking a plate and just smashing a plate and taking another plate in the kitchen, smashing one after the other. And this is the opening context of this book around the ways that we're allowed to feel angry and pissed off and rage. And as you say, like, sometimes it's not pretty and sometimes it's scary, or sometimes it's messy and we use the wrong language, or we don't sound super articulate and our hair gets messy and we don't look great and all these things. And so it's tricky that you've got to, to be a woman, you're only allowed to express a certain hot, dignified, quiet rage. Majestic rage. And it's just, I wonder if we're going to have a lot of backlash from that in these next 7 years.
I hope so.
We're also going to have a lot of environmental stuff happening. So all of this bleaching that you've been doing to get rid of the sour milk smell, I don't know if that's going to take off.
I hope. You just reminded me, in Israel, before you start to work in a school or with environment with kids, you need to provide, I know in other countries as well, you need to provide a document from the police that you don't have a history of any violence or anything like sexual harassment, anything. And in Israel, this report can only be produced for men. So even the police, they don't have a form that says that a woman hasn't been doing those things. They can't print it because the computer wasn't programmed to even produce it for females.
Wow.
It's like the perception in society that like a woman, which is like, it's true statistically that men do more violent things, but just even the perception of like, even for the woman that is a violent person, that is maybe has on her record, we don't have that form. We never bothered making a form that shows that you have a history of violence as a woman.
Wow.
That's the perception.
Oh, Israel. Interesting
So progressive.
place. So progressive. Look,
That's true feminism. Women are better.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. They're just saying, I think what obviously happened there is that, they looked at the research, it's evidence-based, they saw statistically and historically that more men commit violence against women and against other men. And they were like, we are not going to waste our forms on this. Exactly. And we're going to be environmental, because they love to talk about how environmental the country is. So there you go.
Cancelled in the 60th. Do you know what it means?
No.
So cancelled in the 60th, which is a direct translation from Hebrew. is in Judaism, you're not allowed to mix meat and milk. But if you accidentally poured dairy into a meat dish, if it's under a 60th of that dish, so let's say there's 60 cups of meat and you accidentally poured half a cup of dairy, you can still eat it because it's cancelled by the 60th. It's too little to matter.
It's actually still too soon after the rotten milk experience in the house for me to even hear the words meat and milk in the same sentence and in the same house where the milk smell is still, I think, here.
Yeah. So look at us celebrating International Women's Day by saying, well, actually, I think it's nice to, instead of just saying, yeah, it's so good, we're pushing for a change.
Yeah.
We're the true feminists. It's so amazing.
Did you see any amazing posts on Instagram or on the internet for International Women's Day that made you... I mean, I got a lot of emails from companies to sell me things about International Women's Day.
What were they selling?
Sunglasses, bags, just different organizations using Women's Day to promote their products, which is, I'm sure happens a lot on Pride Week as well. But have you seen any cool, inspiring International Women's Day? I saw one post where it was a woman singing, and underneath it said, what if I don't want to be your bitch, your lover, your child, your mother, which is it Meredith Brooks's famous song, I'm a Bitch.
Everyone thinks it's Alanis Morissette. We all have that moment. We're like, wait, it's not Alanis Morissette.
It's not. It's the other Alanis Morissette.
Yeah. I saw a post, an old post that Britney posted. It was, my friends are like boobs. Some are big, some are small, some are soft, and some are fake.
Wow.
I don't know if it was International Women's Day, but it was definitely,
I think we can safely say that Britney is celebrating International Women's Day every single day of her life.
Day.
Like,
definitely. She's done a lot. Okay, so we hope you celebrated International Women's Day wherever you are and, posted something on the internet, bought something
hot, really hot. If you're wondering why you're going batshit at the moment and you're sure that it's not just because of International Women's Day, go and have a look at the movement of Uranus in Taurus for you. So Itai, for Aries, it has a lot to do with how you earn money and what that's going to look like for you over the next 7 years. For me, it's more about psychic intuition. So any Geminis out there, we're going to be feeling some shifts and insight and huge changes around how we intuit. Nice. So some pretty interesting stuff there. Go check it out. It's all on the internet. I'm a big proponent of the internet, as you all know and appreciate.
It's a beautiful tool. Talking about the internet, we want to start an open discussion.
Oh, yeah. What better way to end a long episode with, an opening, a beginning.
An opening, a new topic. It's not going to be long, but we were having a chat whether we think that stalking someone's Instagram to find their birthday in order to get their birth chart is something that is immoral, accepted morally in your eyes. Because we know you need a time of birth to know the rising sign and all the houses. But actually, if you know the day and the year, then you can already know the moon and Mercury and Mars and Venus and all the planets basically where they are, because it takes them more than a day to move. So, I don't know. I think it's okay, because if the person puts their birthday on their Instagram and their Instagram is not on private, then that's information that is available to me.
It feels a bit icky though, because as someone whom some listeners have suggested that I start my own segment called Stalk Talk with Karen, like, I know when it feels like I've crossed the line, because there's so much that's publicly available. But when you're starting to look at someone's Spotify playlists without their consent, because it helps you to feel closer to them, well, that, yes, it's publicly available. No, most people don't think when they put their Spotify playlists on public that someone is sitting, in the small hours of the night or the morning looking at that and listening longingly. But yeah, like I think you're right. It's publicly available. So I think that if you want to get someone's chart without their consent, like I think it's okay. I don't know if it's something people are necessarily yet open about. For me, I've found it quite therapeutic. And I think I've been really colonizing the word therapeutic for some practices which are quite shady. So I'm aware of that. I'm working on that. But I have found it to be healing and therapeutic. I recently, with the help of Itai, looked up an ex's chart without knowing knowing even their birthday, but via Instagram, and it was very healing for me because I was like, oh, Scorpio moon, like how interesting. I thought I had moved away from this toxic, strange thing I have in this Scorpio realm. And I was like, oh no, I'm back there and it's not good for me. So it's like knowing you're allergic to something, but the ingredients, you don't know the name of the ingredients in the list, and you see some other, flavoring 442, and then that flavoring is something that you can't stomach. And so I think it's information, and it helps with understanding, like, oh, that's why that was painful, or that's why, I've been stalking so differently this time. So I don't know, I'm curious to hear what others think.
Let us know. I love that food ingredient metaphor. It's very beautiful. I think it's also very Taurus. Uranus in Taurus. Metaphors about food. We're going to be in April. In the first week of April, we're going to be in Sydney. So we're going to be in Sydney first weekend of April. So if you're there, we're going to record a very special episode with a very special woman that we already mentioned in the podcast, Ali Garrett. If you're not following her on Instagram, why you're wasting your time on Instagram, go and do it.
I'm actually intimidated by her Instagram. It's like too hot, too fun,
too
people
good.
Living their best life, and it's wonderful. Lots of color and amazingness.
So if you're in Sydney in the first weekend of April, hit us up and can catch up, we can stalk people together, we can check their charts.
If you have like a cafe opening, or you want us to talk at a small gathering of people that you have about what we've learnt about life and love.
I hope my voice is better by then, but even if it's not, I will talk. Don't worry. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Astrology Roast, and we'll see you next time.